At 4,478 meters, the Matterhorn is one of the great peaks of the Alps. Carved by glaciers, its sharp summit seems to pierce the sky. Its great stone walls were once considered impossible to climb. They have witnessed many scenes of triumph and tragedy. Led by guides, the climbers will take on the challenge of the Matterhorn. At the dizzying height of 4,000 meters, they will climb their way up the sheer cliff wall.
Again, the chain. Okay, interval. This is the hardest part, huh?
The Matterhorn dominates the skyline of the Alps. The journey to its sharp pinnacle is about to begin. The Matterhorn lies on the border between Switzerland and Italy. It's the middle of July. A Swiss mountain takes the climbers to the town that will serve as their starting point. Zermatt lies nestled in the Alps at an altitude of 1,620 meters. It's one of Europe's premier mountain resort towns. Some 700,000 tourists visit Zermatt every summer. This is the main street. To help preserve the original medieval appearance of the town, gasoline-driven cars are prohibited. People get around in horse-drawn carriages and small electric vehicles. Geraniums add a splash of color to windowsills. Zermatt has flourished since the 19th century as a resort town for people who want to view or climb the Matterhorn. Going down the main street, visitors reach the most popular spot from which to view the mountain. The Matterhorn soars upward to a height of 4,478 meters. Its rugged peak was carved out by glaciers over a period of centuries. Its graceful form draws climbers from all over the world.
I don't know, it's a very beautiful mountain, and you always see it and wonder what it would be like at the top.
Yeah, it's this kind of iconic mountain of the Alps, isn't it? I mean, it's when you think of a mountain, one of the first ones that enters your head is the Matterhorn. I mean, it's such a perfect mountain.
There's an alpine center in town that provides climbers with information. If desired, the center will introduce climbers to local guides. Scaling the Matterhorn is dangerous, so the center encourages climbers to hire guides to accompany them. Simon is the climbing guide who will accompany the camera crew.
Hello. Welcome to Zermatt. How are you?
Fine.
I'm Simon Antomatten. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
You ready for the Matterhorn?
Yes.
Weather is perfect, condition is perfect. We go to the Alps Center, to the mountain guide office.
Simon is 26 years old. He was born and raised in
I
Zermatt.
put my bike over there and then we start.
He is one of Switzerland's best climbers with world-class rock climbing skills. He has climbed the Matterhorn 75 times.
So, this is the mountain we have. The Matterhorn, nice pyramid in Switzerland. Summit is 4,478 meters.
Rock climbing is the main way that people reach the top of the Matterhorn.
This is Switzerland.
Climbers must move quickly to protect themselves from the dangers of bad weather and falling rocks.
So we need to prepare for the. We need to climb the 4,000.
So the most important is to be in a really, really good shape, good condition, to be able to walk a lot of altitude in less time. And the second is you need to be really good acclimatized for the whole ascension, for 4,400 meters. So
The program director, Aya Takahashi, has 8 years of experience climbing rock and snow-covered mountains in Japan. But this is her first time in the Alps. Simon suggests that the team do some preparatory training before the climb. It's 5:30 in the morning. The team takes the ropeway to the Briton, a mountain they can climb in a single day. The Briton is 4,164 meters high. It's ideal for acclimating the team to high altitudes. Even in midsummer, the upper reaches are covered in ice and snow, with temperatures at minus 10 degrees centigrade. For greater safety, each team member is harnessed by rope to a guide, with Simon leading. The team reaches the 4,000-meter mark. Now, they must begin rock climbing. Successful rock climbing requires careful attention to handholds and footholds that can often be very close together.
Small steps, always same steps as I do. Huh?
Okay, I have to watch your step. Huh?
You come really close to where I am. Yeah, now over here.
Quante secondi?
Kein Problem, Leute.
The director carefully observes every move Simon makes and follows close behind.
Climbing, climbing. When I say nothing, you come, huh? Then climbing.
This training session helps Simon to gauge whether the team has the ability to follow him up the sheer cliffs of the Matterhorn.
Right, here.
Yes. Good hold. Yes. Up, up. It's good. Oh, up, up. It's good. Come on. Yes. Nice. Really good, Aya. Perfect. Good climber.
Skillfully shifting her center of gravity, the director successfully climbs up.
Good climber, huh? Yes. It's important. Always do small steps, huh? For the Matterhorn, no problem for you, huh?
You will see. Matterhorn is a little bit harder than here.
Really?
A little bit, longer, huh? But you will be fine, huh?
I mean, how about the hold
Same.
condition?
Same.
Ah,
Same.
so I can have this big
Yes.
hold in Matterhorn too?
Yes, yes,
Ah.
yes.
After about 2 hours of non-stop climbing, they reach the final challenge of the climb.
Now.
A sharp pinnacle of rock awaits them.
Okay, you can flip out the carabiner. Okay.
The tower of rock actually tilts toward them, pulling their bodies away from it.
Yes. Hidari the feet. Yes. Good. Come on.
She looks for another foothold. And then she makes it to the top. Now, it's time to hike on snow. The White Ridge continues all the way to the summit. Buffeted by strong winds, they cautiously advance along the knife-like crest. They arrive at the Briton summit. The team seems fully acclimated to the 4,000-meter altitude. They can see the Matterhorn before them. Simon tells them that they'll approach it on the ridge to the right.
The ridge, go all the ridge on the right side. Up. You put the crampons on the shoulder where it's snow. There is a fixed rock to the sun. Okay?
Very steep.
No. You no. Okay?
Hernley Ridge is a well-known route up the Matterhorn. It's the site of both triumph and tragedy in the history of the Alps. Until the middle of the 19th century, the Matterhorn was feared as the home of demons. Legends spoke of mountain demons who threw rocks on people below. Even after most of the mountains in the Alps had been successfully climbed, the Matterhorn remained aloof and unconquered. Drawn by the mountain's allure, a young Englishman appeared with the ambition of climbing to the summit. His name was Edward Whymper. At first, he attempted the Italian side because the slope seemed less steep, but that route proved extremely difficult. After 7 failed attempts, Whymper noticed something. The mountain's rock strata are set at an angle. On the Italian side, the strata are tilted downward, making it hard for climbers to keep their footing. With this discovery, Whymper was convinced that the Swiss side would be an easier climb, even though the slope looked steeper. Whymper led a team of 7 climbers up the Hernley Ridge on the Swiss side, a route that no one had tried before. As he had expected, the rock strata tilted upward, providing secure footholds. The team made good progress. On July 14, 1865, they reached the summit. The seemingly invincible Matterhorn was conquered at last. But tragedy awaited the victorious climbers, who were all tied together. Soon after they began their descent, one of them lost his balance and fell. The force of the fall broke the rope, sending 4 of the team plunging to their deaths. Whymper and 2 other team members survived. The triumphant success of the first climb was clouded by the tragedy of the 4 deaths. The rope used by the Whymper team is on display in a museum in Zermatt. Made of hemp, it's a centimeter thick. The end is tattered, giving modern-day visitors a chilling taste of just how cruel the Demon Mountain can be. The name Matterhorn means meadow peak in German. About midway up the mountainside, there are grassy fields called Alps. Blue lakes and snow-covered peaks complete the gorgeous scene. This is Lake Riefelsee, which lies in the highlands at an altitude of more than 2,700 meters. The Matterhorn is reflected upside down in its still waters. It is considered one of the most beautiful scenic views in the Alps. A profusion of alpine flowers bloom in July. Edelweiss is one of the Alps' most famous flowers. Its name means noble white. Marmots also live in the alpine meadows, a type of squirrel. They grow as large as rabbits. Traditionally, the summer meadows of the Alps have been used as pastures for livestock. Heine Binar climbs up to the highland fields once a week to tend his flock of 120 sheep. He gives them feed mixed with salt. The meadow grasses must be supplemented to provide the nutrition the sheep need. Heine grew up in the shadow of the Matterhorn.
Oh, c'est les plus belles montagnes dans la montagne. Et puis pour nous, à Zermatt, c'est le Matterhorn, c'est comment ça s'appelle? C'est le king. Hein? On a la chance qu'il y ait Dieu qui donne à nous une jolie montagne comme ça.
Rising above the neighboring mountains, the Matterhorn may indeed be a heavenly gift. In late July, the camera crew is ready at last to climb the Matterhorn. The closer they approach, the more intimidating the great stone mountain appears. The expedition will take 2 days and 1 night. They'll start by taking the ropeway from Zermatt to a point midway up the mountain. From there, they'll hike a mountain trail to a hut where they'll spend the night at an altitude of 3,260 meters. On the second day, they'll climb Hernley Ridge. Following the east side of the ridge, they'll pass by an emergency shelter. The ridge will eventually lead them to the summit at an altitude of 4,478 meters. The team arrives at Hernley Hut, a hike of about 2.5 hours from the ropeway station. They'll spend the night here at an altitude of 3,260 meters. Simon meets the team here.
Hello. Hello. How are you?
Yeah, good.
Good.
Yes.
Ready for tomorrow? Good condition, no problem. Okay.
Hernley Ridge rises behind the hut. The best time to climb is in the summer, after successive days of good weather, when there's little snow. Such ideal conditions prevail only about 20 days out of the year. The kitchen staff are kept busy during the summer season. Hernley Hut has served mountain climbers for 130 years. It's now managed by Kurt Lauber, who also works as a climbing guide. As usual, the hut is full of climbers from all over the world. They fortify themselves with a Swiss-style stewed beef in preparation for the next day's climb. Kurt suddenly puts on his climbing gear and heads out. Apparently, there was an accident on Hernley Ridge. A helicopter arrives from Zermatt. Kurt also leads the mountain rescue team. He works closely with the doctor, paramedic, and pilot who have just flown in. To speed up their rescue response, Kurt hangs from a wire as he's flown to the accident site. Rescue operations on the Matterhorn are of the highest quality in the world. Ten minutes later, the helicopter returns with a stretcher suspended underneath. A woman in her 40s has been seriously injured. She slid down the mountainside after being hit by a falling rock.
Et les bras, où sont les douleurs?
La schiena fa male.
Warmer afternoon temperatures melt the mountain ice, making rocks more likely to fall.
Volé avec elle à l'hôpital de Lille à Berne, à l'université de Berne, parce que les blessures sont très graves, le thorax et aussi l'abdomen.
How often this kind of accident happens in Matterhorn?
Oh, you know, now it's high season, so it happens almost every day, or sometimes 2 times a day. Or it's not always people are so lucky like today. Quite often the people getting killed, and it's a bit more tragic.
The sound of breaking ice echoes in the night. More than 500 climbers have died on the Matterhorn since the first ascent. It's 3 in the morning. People sleeping quietly in the hut suddenly burst into lively activity. Simon begins his preparations along with the others. For safety, each climber goes in tandem with a guide. They tie their ropes firmly inside the hut.
Today, good weather, no wind.
The team leaves the hut at 3:50 a.m. It takes more than 8 hours to climb to the summit and return. Climbers get an early start so that they can avoid the afternoon hours when rocks are more likely to fall. A stone wall looms before them in the darkness. This is where they'll begin rock climbing. As they climb, light gradually suffuses the sky behind the mountains. At 5:30 a.m., the sun rises over the Alps. The climbers are treated to their first view of the Matterhorn summit, bathed in morning light. Erosion and weathering has made the face of the rock wall quite brittle. The climbers must be careful to choose stable rocks for holds.
Hardest part. Huh?
They depend on experienced guides like Simon, who are well acquainted with the mountain. Then suddenly, ouch. The director is hit by a small stone, accidentally dislodged by a climber above. On the Matterhorn, one must always be vigilant.
Climbing, gamba.
Clinging tenuously to a small outcrop, she searches for a handhold.
Go a bit to the.
Go this way.
Yeah, go a bit to the right side.
Remembering her training, she climbs calmly.
Pull to the left. Yes. Good. Okay, Solveig hut, huh? 4,000 meters. Really good target.
At 6:30 a.m., the team reaches Solveig Hut. They've achieved an altitude gain of 740 meters, more than halfway to the summit. But difficult climbing lies ahead. The gradient increases, resulting in very challenging rock climbing. As they ascend, the team encounters the traffic of other climbers. The difficulty of the climb makes progress slow. Simon goes around the waiting people, going further and further in. The usual route is here. Simon is taking a different way.
Come on. Come on, come on. Hey.
Okay, okay.
No, lower, lower, lower. Hey, lift your feet up. Go down, lower down.
The team follows him with intense concentration.
Local guides, go here. The rest go there.
Waiting for other climbers not only wastes time, but increases the danger of falling rocks.
Okay, you right?
Simon leads them up a shortcut that only a native-born guide would know. At 4,200 meters, the director emerges on a slightly more level ridge, known as the Matterhorn's shoulder. They've climbed without rest, gaining nearly 1,000 meters in altitude. They can feel their strength start to fade.
42. 45. 45. Wo der Can ist gegangen. 45.
Fatigue is clearly visible on this woman's face. Perhaps she's not completely acclimated to the high altitude. Others have had an easier time. A climber and guide descend energetically. They were the first to reach the summit on this day.
Very good. Nice. Good condition. Bravo.
Yeah. Yeah.
At 4,300 meters, the gradient suddenly becomes steep again. In fact, this is the most difficult passage, with the ridge running almost perpendicular for about 150 meters. The climbers rely on ropes that have been anchored in the rocks. This was the section where Whymper and his first ascent team met with tragedy.
Start off the fixed ropes, 150 meters. You go slowly, steady. Sometimes I go faster for belaying you, okay? This will be hard, but you can do it.
Okay.
Grabbing a thick rope, like one might use in a tug-of-war, he pulls his body upward.
Okay, Aya, slowly.
Okay.
The rocks are slippery, with no sure foothold. They must rely on the strength of their arms. Simon ascends as if on wings, going quickly from one rope to the next.
Climbing, gamba.
After climbing up about 10 rope segments, the director's legs grow weak and wobbly. The high altitude makes breathing difficult.
Small step. Small step. Then it's easy. Good. Gamba, gamba, no problem. After it's easier, then we come to the roof. Huh? Finish fixed ropes then. Huh? Then we go for summit, okay? Okay, but wait. Okay.
Gathering her strength, she pulls herself up.
Again the chain. Okay, and the rope. This is the hardest part, huh? Yes, strong. Good. No problem, Breuil. You can do it. Gamba, gamba.
The most difficult part of the climb is now behind her.
Perfect.
Okay.
The final challenge is a steep slope. A single misstep could be deadly. Slipping would mean a fall of 1,200 meters to the glacier below. The climbers come out on the ridge that leads to the summit.
Nice, huh?
Nice.
Italy is on the left of the razor-sharp ridge. Switzerland is on the right.
Okay. 10 more meters, huh?
To the left of the ridge, there's a spot that's about a meter higher than the surroundings. At 9 o'clock in the morning, they reach the summit of the Matterhorn.
Congratulations! Perfect! Well done, huh? Matterhorn, 4,478. Nice, huh? You can see Mont Blanc, all the mountains, perfect weather. We did 4 hours average ride. Good. Perfect.
The challenging climb took about 5 hours to complete. It led to a summit with a 360-degree panoramic view. great range of the Alps stretches below them in all directions as far as the eye can see. Zermatt lies 3,000 meters below them. Now they are standing atop that sharp pinnacle of stone that had towered above them when they gazed up from the town streets.
Always when the Matterhorn is really happy to come up on the summit, it's something really special for me because I can see it from my home every day. So you have a really close connection to it.
Led by a guide who truly loves this mountain, the climbers conquered the summit. The spectacular view erases all thoughts of the difficult climb. For centuries, the Matterhorn seemed aloof and insurmountable. 140 years after the first ascent, it still gives an unforgettable thrill to anyone who stands on its summit.